What's up, St. Louis? It's your host, Luke Farrell of the STL Bucket List Show. The STL Bucket List Show is driven by Bomarito Automotive Group. Bomarito is Missouri's #1 car dealership with over 20 locations, so I guarantee that there's one in your neighborhood. Since the 1970s, Bomarito has sold over 1 million cars, and John and the entire team made us feel completely comfortable when we picked up our new vehicle recently for the family. So I can't thank the Bomarito team enough for driving this episode forward, and enjoy the show.
If you want to hear about St. Louis, tune into the Bucket List Show weekly. Hear what Marissa and Luke say. It drops every Wednesday. Got a dope new guest every single week. Buckle up for the ride. Who's it gonna be? Who's on the show today? They rep St. Louis. What to do in the loo on a late night, or maybe what to do on a date night. Yeah, Bucket List has you covered. They know what's going on. What's going on, they'll give you, hey, 18 different things to do, or 19 if you need one more to choose. Yeah, this city is a place we call home. A place we call home, yeah.
What's up, St. Louis? We're back with another episode of the STL Bucket List Show. Today, we're one host down. We're getting real close to baby time, but we're going to keep the show rolling because we know that it's vital to support the people, places, and events that make St. Louis special. In today's episode, we have somebody very special that's built an incredible business right here in St. Louis. But before we get into that, I just want to show some love to the companies that have supported us this year, starting with the Regional Arts Commission of St. Louis for sponsoring the podcast, our friends Kevin and Liz over at Four Hands Brewing Company for really taking a chance on our show when we first got started, and then the Wine and Cheese Place, and of course St. Louis Closet Company for being a part of the show this year. So as we roll into 2024, we got some big goals to bring this show to a bigger level and continue to support St. Louis. But I want to introduce you to our guest today. So we have entrepreneur Patrick Huck in studio today. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
So Patrick, I want to first tell the guests who you are. You're behind the scenes, but you're building an amazing business right here in St. Louis. So with Advanced Training and Rehab, you guys have 23 locations.
23 locations now.
22, one coming.
22, one coming. Soon to be born.
Soon to be born.
That's the theme today.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. By the time people are listening to this, I might be a dad by then too.
Amazing.
So Patrick, I want to learn a little bit. If you could just tell us what ATR is, what Advanced Training Rehab does, and just give us a little overview of what your business is.
Sure. Advanced Training and Rehab was actually born in 2001, and there was a core business that was in place, and it's an outpatient orthopedic physical therapy business. So most of the people that come to us, actually all of them, do so by choice. Most people know physical therapy, like if you get in a hospital, you're there and you have to participate before you can go home. But for us, it's usually injuries like something as simple as a back strain, ankle sprain, something of that nature, to where it's not getting better. Doctor refers them to us, then we try and get their lives back through what we perform. So it's what's called an outpatient physical therapy based type of business.
And you guys are local and family owned, right?
We are local and family owned, born here. Again, stretch from Cape Girardeau to Wentzville and all places in between. So, yeah,
you guys are all over. And it's been fun getting to know you guys better, but I want to learn a little bit about you. So I know we talked a little bit off air, but if you could take us back, your story, even before you even went to college, like growing up, where you're from. A lot of people like to know what high school you went to, but just kind of give us an overview and kind of what led you to where you're at now.
Sure. So I'm a small town kid. I was born in St. Genevieve, just down the highway, 55, and was there until the 8th grade. And my dad, it was kind of sort of legendary head football coach in that community. And he took a different path, became a high school principal. And so we moved to down the road 55 again to Jackson, Missouri. And so that's actually where I graduated high school. And he was the high school principal of the high school I was at. So that was always an interesting dynamic. And from there, went to PT school at Mizzou, so M-I-Z. And graduated from there in 95, hung around St. Louis for a little while, then moved to Dallas and lived there for 6 years and was involved in an amazing private practice there in the physical therapy world, where I learned just so many life lessons in physical therapy from the best mentors ever. And to me, that is, for young people, whatever industry you choose to get involved in, finding an amazing mentor that can point you down the right life path, I think, is huge. And that's what it led to for me, our practice there after I was there was bought. And soon I learned that a private practice versus a corporate-owned practice becomes a lot different monster. And so I knew at that point I wanted to get back to this area someday, and it seemed like that was a perfect time to do so. And so I had learned so much there about the physical therapy business, and so I took what I learned, moved it several states north, and took those same principles and found a really good fit here. And it was kind of an interesting fit because I met a gentleman, my partner in the business, a guy named Jim Hoffman, who had a physical therapy business, but he really needed a spark, I think, to really help bring a good physical therapist to that business to really help get it to another level. So the parts were in place, but I don't think we had all the right pieces. And so I joined him, and basically, even though it was in place, we kind of collectively started Advanced Training and Rehab from that point, even though he gets full credit for the very origins of it. But that's where it really began to take off.
Yeah, that's inspiring. You mentioned like having a mentor, and you mentioned taking your lumps, working at places, and that's important because me being 28. I don't have that much life experience, but the 7 adult years, I guess, like after school and everything, of like learning and soaking it up, working at jobs that you might not like, but you're learning something from it, and taking those. And I think that that's one thing that I hope that like our listeners that are younger, it's like, you might not love where you're at now, but soak that knowledge up, whether it's sales, whether it's service. There's so many aspects of business. People think that, I just want to be in business so I can have this amazing chill life. And it's like, it's the complete opposite of that.
Without a doubt.
You have to sign up. And I mean, you guys have been through, you've been in business now for 23 years. So it's like, 23 locations. I mean, that you could have never probably imagined that. So tell us about that. Like
not in a million years. I mean, when I joined, we were in the Veta Sports Complex in South County, which most people go to play soccer and whatnot. We had a gentleman there that was kind enough.
The Concord?
We had a gentleman there that was kind enough to rent out a storage closet for us to open one of our clinics. And so I got to tell you, I talk about humble beginnings, but I look back at those times and we really fought to survive on a 2-week basis when payroll was due. And so at that time we had 2 clinics and I was bouncing back and forth between the 2. I would spend one day at South County, the next day at West County, and just did everything known to me to survive. So we had this great product, but talk about a beginning hustle. And so during that time, you want to continue to be a great physical therapist, but you also have to learn a lot of life lessons about what also entails a great business. And so, because you can have a great physical therapy product, but you also have to deliver a great service too. And I think we very early on figured that out, and that really helped with our growth.
Yeah, that's it is. There's so many more aspects to it, but you mentioned also privately owned, because you were at a private practice, they went corporate, and then you're like, I don't like things about that. So like, how rare is it to be a private practice in your industry? Because a lot of industries, there's so many private companies, but like in yours, it seems rare.
It is rare. And it's funny, my partner Jim and I will laugh sometimes because when we opened, we looked at the yellow pages. And I tell my young therapists now, they don't, many of them don't even know what that is. And so we make a joke that, back at that time, you'd look at the yellow pages and we had all these like businesses, and we were like, oh, maybe one day we'll be like them, and maybe one day we'll be like them. But over the course of time, you look at what would be the yellow pages and most of them are gone. There's a couple like us that are still in the community, but we are just this St. Louis-based physical therapy practice that has just slugged it out with the heavy hitters, in the community. And you see them when you drive down the highway, in the different parts, whether it's, a hospital or a corporate-based entity. And we're still this St. Louis, hardworking group, of these awesome group of therapists that have very like morals and work ethic and just really, really do what it takes to provide an awesome product. And we've survived and continue to grow and thrive in a really, really tough environment.
Yeah, I mean that is true, and it's almost like you have to operate with a chip on your shoulder. Not like there's anything wrong with the other companies, but you almost have to like be fighting against them, even though they may or may not even know you're there. But you are fighting against them, like, hey, I'm gonna get it. It's like that. That's that St. Louis mentality. I think is like we like to support. We mention it, support local. We like to kind of get into it.
There's a very David and Goliath chip on your shoulder, I think, and you're right. I mean, they have resources that we don't have, will never have, but we think that we make it up in just hard work, providing great experience for our patients, great care for our patients. In our business, it's referral based. Physicians refer into our business, and they trust us to take care of their patients and communicate well with them and provide an amazing service. And we take that. That's a big responsibility to us because you got to come through for that patient, you got to come through for the physician, and that's how they'll continue to use your service. And I feel like we do a really, really great job at that.
Yeah. So the PT world is, ever changing. When you were doing it back in, you said 95 is when you started.
Correct. Yes.
That's when you graduated.
That is, believe it or not, that
was when I was born. So
that's great to know. That's awesome.
Great. He's like,
that makes me feel good.
Well, you've been around. So
yes.
But no, in 95 PT, now we have all this information on the internet. We live in a digital world. So tell us how, your staff, because your staff is amazing as well. And you guys continue. And I think that that's part of that local feel is like, we're building within, you're giving power to your staff to have hey, you're going to be at this new location. Like you're doing that. So let's start with that first is like, how do you empower your staff? How do you find the talent? Because what makes them come to you guys rather than one of those?
Yeah, we've got a lot of really cool things that we do that I think are really unique to us. And it's a great question because it gives me a chance to really brag humbly about what we do. And so how do they come to us? Well, we're very involved with a number of schools, both locally, near and far, and so we bring in a lot of students and help with their education process when they're on clinicals, and they get a really good look at us then. So that's kind of where it starts. Beyond that, when we hire physical therapists, we have an amazing mentoring program that starts from the first day somebody walks in the door, continues formally, like there's a real set process that I put in place for the first year, but it continues well beyond that. And so it's this growth process that we, and in particular I, make sure is spot on for these young people to develop into the therapists that they want to become. And I'll also do a lot of coaching in there because I actually, at this stage, I don't see patients anymore unless there's like somebody that's not getting better and they need like an old man to go in there and give them an eye. But really, the greatest part of my job is coaching these young therapists through this process of them getting better, having some direction in their career. And when they don't want to go to a Con Ed class, I usually tell them it's good if you go, to make yourself better. Yeah. One other thing that's really unique to our business too is I know kind of the theme of your show is entrepreneurship and business ownership. When we have a therapist that comes in and they say, man, I'd love to own my own clinic someday, and it sounds like a great idea, but they maybe don't know how to do that. We have also a process to where I have a number of our clinics where my partner and I partner with another therapist, and they become a minority owner of a clinic, which they get their ability to still see patients. And in our business, there's so many other things that go along with being able to own a business and provide physical therapy service. And we help them with that. Yeah. And so these young people become business owners within our system, but are still able to practice as physical therapists. And they just do amazingly well.
Yeah. And you get that once, you own that business, then what you're creating is a winning culture. You're creating a culture that cares.
Yes.
You're creating longevity because in any industry nowadays, the lifespan of employees is shortening and shortening and shortening. So you're constantly like trying to find people, but like how do we create, like back in the day, like all of our parents and grandparents, it's like they worked places for 35 years. That was normal.
Yes.
That's not normal anymore.
No. And here's a great point off of what you just asked, Luke, and because we tell people this a lot. In the physical therapy world, the average duration of a career is 7 years. Wow. So imagine that. So and even more interesting is that the average span of a young person's first job is 10 months. And so you have these things that are specific to the field that we work in that are really, really hard to keep people because a lot of them, after they get to around year 7, they choose to do something else. And so you have to give them a reason to stay in the profession. And I think we do a really, really good job of that. Also, a word that you use that I love is culture. I mean, I feel like we have in all 23 of these clinics, we have a very similar culture in each one of those. And we do that by trying to hire very similar people that are hard workers, very coachable, all of the great qualities. And it's really funny, if you make a mistake sometime and hire someone that isn't that, they find their way out pretty quickly. And the people that are in those clinics, they trust us to hire someone that are similar to them because the culture just continues to grow and get better and better. That's really tough. And that's kind of my responsibility now for what I do.
It is tough, and I'm learning that on a smaller scale. But like as a small business with 5 to 6 employees, when you have one person that doesn't fit in that culture, you're hurting your business because that's 20% of your company basically. So I'm coming through with those same things. It's like, but when you're creating that winning culture, or that not even winning, but like the mindset, the positivity, the things that you want to come to work to, you're right. People will weed it out. There's a company in St. Louis that I'm really inspired by, First Form. And they've created this incredible culture. I mean, people love working there. It's hard to have people love coming to work,
My son loves their drinks, by the way.
Yeah, their energy drinks?
Yes. Oh,
yeah. No, they do protein powders, but they're right out in Fenton. A lot of people don't know that. But they've created this culture where, people are on social media. And since I met your team, and they're all about the same age as me, they're like energetic. They're going above and beyond, like meeting with us to like help grow parts of the business that may not even be their job, like that, like some of the social stuff and some of the other stuff, but like they want to see that growth. And they like, when they met us, I'm like, oh, I didn't know, like I thought we were going to meet you. I thought we were going to meet all these people. And like, no, these are people that you've brought in. They're in their 20s that want the business to move forward. And they've helped us so much, from like at the photo shoots, they're coming after hours to like be models, and like, patients are coming in. Like, it's just this, it's what St. Louis is. So I think it is. It's like this whole like we're all in it together, and if we all win together.
That makes me really happy to hear that. By the way, I didn't know that, but it doesn't surprise me because we have so many, and it really is everybody. We have such great employees, and they're so dedicated. And I Molly, who you've interacted with, she's like, I need volunteers for a photo shoot after hours, and you just have pop, 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 pop. These people that'll just go above and beyond. And I think it is the cornerstone of our business. I think it's what makes it so successful, because that spreads to patient care. It spreads to, we do so many things within the community. It just has so many different reaches that it can get to, and it does with us. So that's really cool. I didn't know that, but it doesn't surprise me.
No, it's been great. So me being an entrepreneur, being younger, I like to talk to other entrepreneurs because you've been through a lot of things. And I know not everything is sunshine and rainbows. So tell us about some of those, like, those slugs that you've had over the years. Like what are some things that if the people that are listening right now, maybe they're about to graduate college, we have a really young listening core. What is like maybe some advice that you would give to somebody in 2024 starting into business?
Boy, I'm going to try and pick a couple so I don't take all day, right? Number one, boy, you got to love what you do. You have to love it. I have been involved with Advanced Training and Rehab for over 20 years, and still to this day, even though it's tough, it still doesn't feel like work to me because I love every aspect of the business. I truly do. So, man, when you get started and you're thinking about maybe doing something where you might own a business, you have to love that business. I think also some of the things that stand out to me, like COVID was tough. I mean, you talk about, that'll teach you a lot about yourself and just perseverance, and because that's something we had never dealt with before. And I remember my partner and I looking at each other when all of this was coming down. I remember it as, like it was yesterday. And he and I looked at each other and said, we have two choices here. We can either pull the covers up over our head and, boo-hoo to whomever cares, or we can figure this thing out and get up and start fighting and find ways when mostly everybody else shut down to really take advantage of this horrible situation. And our business almost doubled after that because we became so creative. When you couldn't go visit people, well, we were having outdoor happy hours in parking lots with people where we spread out, but we still kept touch with them. And we just got so creative. And it's some of those same things that we carried forward to our business today. And so it was a horrible circumstance, but also something that sticks out in my mind of you have to persevere even in the worst of times and press forward, because businesses rarely just go up all the way. There is a lot of this in them, and you'll find out really who you are when you hit the dips. And it's usually, if you can fight through it, the peaks get even higher.
Yeah, and I told this to a young entrepreneur recently, and there's a quote I always say in a lot of episodes. It's like, if not us, then who? If not now, then when? So you're looking in those fight or flight situations of, there's not that many people that are taking these risks. So our competition is slimming during those moments.
Oh, yeah.
So if you think of it as an athlete, and I compare it to a lot of sports, like coaches like Nick Saban and Bill Belichick and all these guys that have been super successful, it's like the person that just keeps doing it over and over and over again and just keeps going, it's not luck. It just they seem lucky. Yeah, they do. Yeah. But it's like those guys are working harder. Tom Brady, those guys are working harder. LeBron James, like you're looking at all these people and they're not more talented. You're not more talented than the next guy. Like you're just more consistent. You're more. You're being creative, and it's like you have an obligation. You guys have a huge team. You can't curl up in a ball because those are other families that are relying on you.
There is no doubt. I mean, we have right at, just short of, but almost, close enough to say it, we're right at 200 employees. Yeah. And it's very personal to me, that each day I come to work, I have an obligation to people that have trusted myself and my partner, Jim, with basically their professional lives. And that extends to their families. And so that's a huge responsibility to me. And so if there's ever a question, should I go to this? And do I just want to take it home early? And I mean, especially in the very beginning, stages of our business, I found really quickly one word that we couldn't say. And I tell this to our young therapists, it has to be in control, but you can't say no a lot of times, when you're really trying to help something survive. So, yeah. Yeah,
it is like, the word no, and you don't want to be like, oh, you have to say yes to everything and put them in a comfortable, but
within
it's like,
reason.
But yeah, like just, say yes to things. And a new thing that I can't wait to teach my kids is like the word I can't. I was listening to another podcast and it's like, no, don't say I can't, say just I haven't done it yet. Nice. And it's like how the word I can't is like almost like screeching on a chalkboard. You can do it. Right. You just haven't figured out how to. Do you need help with that? And I think ownership and there's probably been many spots in your journey where you're like, I could probably hang it up by now, but you're still grinding. You're rocking all the stuff. You're here doing podcasts. Right. Like, so what is your role? Because you talked about staff culture. Like, is that where you lie in? Is it team building? Is it recruiting? Is it?
Well, all of the above, with the exception of, so here's hopefully an interesting story. As we were building, and I would just put my head down and treat patients, at all times and sometimes on the weekends, and we weren't even open on the weekends, but I had a kind of a life coach that was talking to me, and the best advice one of the best things that was ever shared to me, and he's not a physical therapist, but he said, hey, it's great. I think at that point we were at 5, 6, 7 clinics. He said, you're doing a wonderful job. But the best thing that you could ever do is find a way to produce versions of yourself. You can have the 2 busiest clinics, and that's phenomenal. But if you can share your knowledge with young people and pass along what you feel like are the successful qualities that you bring to the business to others, then you got something. And so to answer your question, I don't treat patients anymore, like I already mentioned, but what I do is I basically have a hat, a whistle, a clipboard, and I've just become coach. And it's so fulfilling because we hire many of these people out of college, obviously, and you coach them through. And one of the greatest parts of my job, and I tell this to our staffs often, is we'll hire somebody and they'll be driving grandpa's old truck, you know, and you see them start to have success in their career. And then they meet their wife, and then they get married, and then they buy their first house. And you know, with what you provided long, long ago and what you're giving to them now, and they're having success, that you had a lot to do with that. And that is the greatest feeling, you know, as a business owner at the stage that I'm in, being coach of these people, that you could ever hope to have. You know, to me, that's number one right now. And I love that role. You know, I'll come in and I'll just let people just spew on me. Tell me your problems. I can't help you in what you're experiencing as far as professional struggles if I don't know them. And so I have a real simple policy with any employee that we have. You know where to find me. You know, I'm not 3 states away. You have my cell number. If we need to meet and talk about what's on your mind, let's do it now. And that's how I can help you. And that's what I also love about our business is it's so personal. You know, when we're hiring people, like you had mentioned, I don't have recruiters. I want to know who's going to be joining our company. And you know, so I meet everybody personally, and it's a long process. You know,
I didn't know that.
Oh
yeah,
man,
that's awesome.
And you know, my partner's the same way. And people that we bring into the organization, you know, we want to have a great cultural fit, and so
and that starts from the top.
It does, and so that's another role for us. You know, in addition to coaching, it's recruiting and bringing, you know, these people into the organization that we think that we're going to really, really be able to help, and will also help the company.
Were you always good? So, like, how old were you in 2001?
But like,
you don't have to. You don't have to. But like, you were a young entrepreneur in 2001. So, were you always good at coaching and recruiting, or was that something that you learned?
No, is a very
some people are like just naturally good at leading.
Correct. And you know, I kind of had to do it out of necessity because the business started growing so fast. You know, what happened was I had people that were working with me at the time, and I kind of passively recruited them. They would watch me, listen to me, etc. I think they could see that I was a pretty hard worker, and they had a lot of confidence in me, and so a lot of them followed me. And so, but what ended up happening is that I saw that the business was growing at such a fast rate that I had to get really good at recruiting and things of that nature, or we just couldn't keep up with what was going on growth-wise. And so to answer your question, Luke, no, I wasn't good at it in the beginning, and that's even kind of being kind. I stunk at it, you know, but it's a skill that as the business grows, you have to kind of grow into the business, and you do get a lot better at it. I think the best thing that I learned how to do, even though it may not seem like it now because I'm talking a lot, you have to become a great listener. And sometimes you just have to shut up, you know, and as you're interviewing somebody and recruiting, you have to listen to what they're really looking for, and then I think kind of move off of that.
Yeah, I love that, and I also love when you mentioned, you know, fresh out of college. So you're getting these people at a very, you know, an opportunity in their life when they have a lot of opportunities.
Oh man!
And when they pick you, you have an obligation to give them a pathway to marriage, the home, the kids, and then you get to see this like for the last 20 years, and even if they work there or not. You know, you might still know these people. They might have had other jobs. They might have their own business by now, you know, and like being able to be at those weddings and, you know, see a post on Facebook, oh, congratulations on your first child. Like you're making a bigger impact. And I think that's one thing a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with is they want to have it all to themselves. You can't have it all.
Oh, no.
You can't have it all. You can't. And you're not actually making a big impact if it's just you. You're not like when you're the most important person at the business, you don't have a business, you have a job, you know, and that's how I feel. And that's where I was a couple years ago. And it's like, now I want to be, you know, the least important. Not the least, but like I want to be like, oh, they know, they can do it, they know. And then, oh, this is a big problem, Luke. Can you know, then you can come in and help. But I think that that's the impact that I can't wait to see in my personal life is like, you know, 20 years from now, like how many lives can we touch? And you guys get to do it with your employees, but also your patients.
Oh,
so you have two sides of the bill.
We do, man. That's a great, I think with the greatest thing that you can tell, or I think is a good barometer of our business, is we see so many returning patients. You know, you treated them for their back a month ago, and then they twist their ankle, playing pickleball, which is a very common thing that's happening now.
That.
Pickleball is the greatest thing for physical therapy ever. But anyway, yes, I mean, that you had to do something right because they trust you, and then they trust you with a friend and their cousin and whatnot. And for us, that has grown, and it's so awesome that I can go into maybe somebody I treated at our West County office, which was one of our very first offices, and I see now I'll go through and I'll see them in our Crestwood office, and they've just gone because it's closer to home. At that time, we didn't even have it. But they have so much trust in our brand and our product. It doesn't matter which clinic they go into. They know they're still going to get an awesome product. And, returning business is really, really mentally, it's awesome to see those people coming back.
Because we mentioned this before, like we were talking about Dallas, but like St. Louis is a small town. It's like you only have so many chances with people.
Oh, man.
With anything. It's like, and this is one thing with like people will go into a fast food restaurant, they'll mess up their order, they'll go back. But like when it's a small business, they don't go back. You get one opportunity.
You do.
And then that person has families and then they refer. And that's the best thing. It's that grassroots. You can do all the marketing in the world. You can do all the mailers, all the billboards, all that. But it's like, if my, wife's family says, oh, I use this person to do my bathroom, I'm going to go with that person. Right. It doesn't matter how good their website is and how good, all these different things are. So what is, I know you guys have probably, internally like these long-term visions, but like, are you guys just going to keep putting these things up? And, how many more can you put in St. Louis, first of all? I think you're about tapped out.
Well, it's interesting. Kind of the formula for that is it's pretty simple. We have great relationships with so many physicians in town, and they've trusted us with their patients for years and years and years. And so I'll usually get a call and they'll say, hey, have you guys ever thought about, like a clinic here or a clinic there, because maybe they don't get the results that they're hoping for. And then kind of the process that I told you before, we coach these young people up, and when either they get in a position where they can provide the leadership to an office, or if they're in a position where they want to have the ultimate goal of actually owning an office, we take all that in consideration. And so the physician request, maybe an underserved area, maybe the person at the right place and time usually leads to another location. Do I have a final number? I don't, but as long as that opportunity is still there, because kind of like we talked about earlier, I think the formula, and all of the cultural things and all the things about our business, I think you could open a place almost anywhere, knock on wood, and it would work as long as you stand by that. There has to be a business need. We couldn't open up, someplace, 1,000 miles away from here, nobody would know about us. But I think if we did so in a reasonable area here, and there was some interest in it by our referring physicians, it would work.
So there's a formula, it's like, do I have somebody ready? Do I have a need? Can we make it work?
Yes.
Let's go.
Yep.
And then it just happens quick.
And then it just happens. So independent of any kind of mental number you might have, but I tell you, we keep on following that formula. And it's working.
Yeah. No, that's inspiring. I mean, to build anything in general, to keep doing something is inspiring. And really it's just like taking a moment to step back. People say this, it's like you get caught up in some of the negative parts of your day to day, like, accounting and this and this person's having this issue. But it's like to take a step back and really look at it. Like you guys probably have a holiday party or something. It's like, wow.
Tomorrow, actually.
Tomorrow. There you go. So tomorrow, this is my advice, is take a step back, just sit there, and look at everything and look at everybody. And then, somebody told that to us at our wedding. It's like, it's all stressful. It's stressful. Like we got to get this wedding done. We got to spend all this money, whatever. But then you take a step back and everybody's there for ATR, at that moment.
Right.
So it's like, that's what I've been trying to do is gratitude. It's like, how can I be grateful? Because I do love waking up on Monday and going to work.
Yeah.
My wife loves her job. It's like, we're married and we're two people. We don't know anybody else that both love their job. Like it's a rare situation to be in. So as long as we have that, everything else will work itself out. But yeah, I mean, what you guys have built is incredibly inspiring. And the things you're talking about make sense because of the team that I met that you guys have. So all of that adds up. It's not just a handbook. It's not just something that people sign when they work there. It's like you're implementing that culture, and you're going to continue to grow. And I think that I could just see that in the people, and I think you have to have a vision, and that's you have that vision and you have that pathway forward. Everybody wants to chase things that the grass is greener, but the grass is the greener where you water it, and it's
like that. Yeah, for sure.
So this is the STL Bucket List podcast. What that means to us is it's not things we want to check off of our bucket list, but it's things we love about St. Louis. It's places we love to eat, parks we like to go to. So I know you came from a small town.
I did.
But you live in the St. Louis area now. So
my wife and I, and we have one son, Nathan. We live in Kirkwood. And we've lived there for, in that area for almost 20 years, not quite, but so to answer your question, yes.
Yeah, so you're in the Kirkwood area. So what are a few things that you would say when people are coming to visit you? Like, what are some spots that you would want to bring people to? Like some of your favorite spots to eat? It doesn't have to be Kirkwood, but just like when you want to say, like, these are our family's bucket list things to do in St. Louis.
Places to eat. Yeah. Boy, it'd be a tie, I think.
Yeah.
We're big fans of Annie Gunn's because I think it's just the perfect balance of amazing food and amazing service, and you just get them both. So big fans. Paul Mano's is way up there for us too, on the Italian side of things. Yeah. So those would be our top two places.
When it's going to be great, you're like, hey, it's a birthday, it's an anniversary, like we're going.
Those are kind of can't miss places to me.
They're amazing.
Great
ownership of both of them too.
Phenomenal. Yeah. As far as places to go, and parks you had mentioned, I've spent many, many hours at Queenie Park and running the big loop there at kind of odd hours, usually very early. It's one of my best places to just totally de-stress and love the loop around there. Yeah. My wife, Vicky, is full-blooded Greek, and so she grew up around Francis Park. And so we have this, this love for Francis Park. Her parents still live in the area. I know Tim, who we talked about. He's South City. Yeah. There is some bond to that area that is just amazing. And so we love spending time around, St. Louis.
Anytime they do a festival there.
Oh man, it's
they do a couple big ones there, and then the Greek festival is big over in the West. And I just went to that this past year.
Yeah, so my wife is from a Greek family that's just amazing, and learning that culture and being around them is really, really
so you're cool. Like small town, they're like South City. South City people are, like you said, they're not cliquey, but they're tight knit.
Oh yeah.
And it's weird to see that in the city because like South City doesn't really it doesn't feel like, I live in Southampton, so right over there by that area. Yeah. And it just feels like me coming from a small town in Wentzville, which is not small anymore, but it was when I grew up there. But like going to South City, I'm like, this feels good. Yeah. I feel good to live here. I feel proud to live here. Yeah. And to have that. And same with the people in Kirkwood. I mean, the people in Kirkwood love Kirkwood, and it's changing a lot in the last 20 years. It's becoming like a lot of the new hotness now.
Without a doubt. Yeah, my wife digs at me from being a small town kid every once in a while, and I'm like, but it has a similar feel to South City. It's really not that different, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, that's cool. So your son, is there any for me about to have my first kid, is there any bucket list spots that you did when your kids were growing up?
So my son Nathan, he's just turned 16. He goes to Priory.
Driving?
He just started driving. Woo! And so, we were just so heavily involved in sports, and he still is. He plays baseball and heavily involved in that. And so anything that we did at a very young age was always sports related, whether it was, we traveled, a decent amount, would go, like we were talking about, we're huge Dallas Mavericks fans, and we found our way to their games, which isn't a local answer, but, but everything around this area, that was sports related, we were really into. But he was way into baseball and basketball.
Yeah, baseball. I played baseball growing up too, and it's like the best thing was like that after game ice cream that after game. Yeah, everybody gets together, whether you won or lost, and got together. But that's another thing. It's just like the community aspect, and he's 16 now. It's a couple years go by, he's gonna be out in college somewhere. And,
the countdown's on.
Yeah, and then man, that's awesome. I can't wait for that. We're having a daughter, and it's just like, I'm just like, I just can't wait to shift my life to something else. Like now it's just the next journey. And I know it's not easy.
No,
but
it's not easy, but it's the greatest thing ever too.
Yeah.
You know, you have to, now you got to keep your head on a swivel a little bit because you can't get too far off of this one and you can't do too far off of that one, but it's the greatest thing ever. You'll love it.
Yeah, we had Emily Frisella on the podcast, and she was talking about a quote by Tim Grover, and Tim Grover is this athlete trainer, super motivational guy, and they're talking about balance, and they're like, balance, there's no balance. It's the scale is like you put more on your family, then your work goes down.
Yeah.
You put more on this side. You know, you just have to find what works for you. And in some moments, like summers during baseball, it's like you're family all summer.
Oh yeah.
And then winter, you're in the lab, you're working on the business. You just have to be more strategic.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. And you'll find your way.
Yeah.
It takes a little while to get used to it.
I know, I'm nervous,
and
dude.
Your wife will probably be, you know, whipping on you a little bit when your scales get out of balance. Yeah. But you'll find your spot.
She already does that now. So I just know that I'm like, I just want to find a way to turn it on and off. Like for some reason now that everything's digital, you can't turn it off. Like when you used to leave the office, you left the office.
Right.
You know, you had an email, but you checked it the next day maybe, or or a phone call, you had a voicemail. But now it's like you have access to everything. You can see numbers and like, why'd we have a bad day today? You know, it's too involved. It's like, let me disconnect.
You can't turn it off, can you? It's always there.
Yeah, it's tough. So, and especially being in the digital world and just being able to set those boundaries. And I think that just starts with that. But Patrick, I appreciate you coming on the show, man.
Man, Luke, it's an honor. And as I've gotten to know you, through Molly, and this is our first time meeting today, I think it's amazing what you and your wife are doing and exposing all this great stuff about St. Louis. And we are just honored to be a part of it. And so thank you so much for the conversation today. I thought it was awesome. This
was awesome. Thank you so much for the kind words. It's that's another thing. Like we keep talking about business, but like us as business owners, sometimes you don't get praise similar to what you give out to people, and it feels good. And that's another thing. It's like, hey, let's just be grateful for these moments. And the podcast has been one of the best things we've ever done because we just get to connect with people. I call it the new golf because everybody used to go golfing all the time. Now everybody's got podcasts now. Everybody's talking. Everybody's doing this. But I want you to leave with a couple words for ATR. Like, let us know how people can support you, websites and other things like that, where they can find you.
Absolutely. We're all over social media, but the easiest, our website is www.atr-stl.com, and that has all of our locations, which will be 23 probably by the time this comes out, or really close to it. But we are far and wide. The great thing about physical therapy, and I'll be real quick here, is that in August in Missouri, a law called direct access passed. And so people can actually come in without a physician's script if they have issues. But we love our physicians as well that support us so well. And they can, once you receive your script from a doc, that's how you find us. And we are all over the city. And so that's the best way, and it has all of our locations on there, and there will be one near you. So we hope that, we can take care of your listeners, and we're really, really good at what we do and would be honored to be able to treat them. But that's the easiest way to find us.
Cool. Thank you so much, Patrick.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Yep. Yes, sir. Thanks again for tuning in to the STL Bucket List Show. This podcast is presented by Bankhead and Firth Ortho. Bankhead and Firth is family-friendly and family-focused right here in St. Louis. They just celebrated their 50-year anniversary, and they have 5 locations that are all near you right here in St. Louis. Head over to their website at bankheadandfirthortho.com.
Today they rep St. Louis, yeah. They rep St. Louis. They rep St. Louis.